Hi, good afternoon and welcome to SportWorks Talks. My name is Christian Page and with me this afternoon is Gordon Templeman. Good afternoon, Gordon.
Thank you, Christian, for having me at SportWorks Talks and for the introduction and also the opportunity, I think, to present Beach Wrestling World Series on this medium.
We're looking forward to hearing all about it. For those of you around the world, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you with us, participating in this another webcast. It's getting colder in Lausanne. As you'll see, we're both jacketed up, even in the studio. The snow's on the mountains, which is a good sign. But as we said, wherever you are in the world, please let us know what it's like. If it's warm, lucky you. So please drop a note in the chat. As always, the talk will go for about 20 minutes. Gordon's going to give us a great presentation and some of the insights into beach wrestling and a little bit of background as to the World Wrestling Federation. And after that, we're going to have a bit of Q&A and we'll hopefully answer some of your questions. Now, the first thing I'm going to catch myself on, it's not World Wrestling Federation. It's the United World Wrestling Federation. So we'll start on that point.
Yeah, excellent.
Over to you. So we'll
all right. Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, before I think we dive into the Beach Wrestling World Series presentation, I was going to start out by just giving an overview and some context, I think, to everyone listening who doesn't follow wrestling on a daily basis. But yeah, like I said, some context. So where I want to start in the world of wrestling is going back a bit. So in 2013, wrestling was removed from the Olympic program. The sport was in a crisis, and there was a disconnect between wrestling and the IOC. And in that time, the interim president, so Nenad Lalovic, was appointed to spearhead the efforts, I think, to re-establishing that connection with wrestling and with the IOC and the Olympic movement. I think he started off, putting his hands up and saying humbly, we have room to improve and we've made mistakes, but we're here to listen. And I think that's the starting point from there. Fast forward, I think, to September 2013 in Buenos Aires. There's I think, a meeting where wrestling was reinstated back onto the Olympic program. And I think that was the culmination of, putting in place structures. But really, I think that was to get the sport back into a place where I think it could move forward. In 2014, that's when I joined, and I joined the federation to establish a communications, a commercial department, and we've really, I think, revamped the sport by a rebrand and a re-identity of the sport. And I think there's so many lessons and experience that we've learned along the way that has kind of empowered us to take on new challenges and to continue to innovate the sport of wrestling. And I think that's kind of where I kind of segue into a new style, into the Beach Wrestling World Series. So for the next part, I think to give you guys just a snapshot, or I think a preview into what beach wrestling is, we'll just play a video clip to give everyone context and I think a preview. All right, so yeah, I think with the video giving you guys a preview of beach wrestling to date, yeah, it explained what it was. I think some of the technical points that I'll reiterate just to kind of dabble into those details, just to give you guys some more information on what beach wrestling is, as well as the Beach Wrestling World Series. I think, you know, we did gain the experience that like standalone events within wrestling were, we didn't give them the opportunity to be successful. So I think in terms of a Beach Wrestling World Series, that's where we really made the decision that it can't be a standalone event, but we are going to start with the series. And I mean, I think that as well allows us to capture more content. It gives a cadence to the storytelling, which I think allows us to continuously engage an audience and to build our fan base and people who are interested in beach wrestling. So I think that was the very starting point in terms of not having a standalone event, but turning it into a series. And then, you know, once we made that decision, we were like, okay, well, where are we going to host? You know, where are these series stops going to take place? And I think, you know, with the beach, we put together the short list of the most iconic beaches in the world. And I mean, yeah, I think that really gets you excited to have a cool sporting event there. And for us, I think we didn't foresee some of the challenges, but I think we continued to push through. And I think rather than finding the most iconic stops, we worked with the national federations, I think, who really wanted to buy into beach wrestling. And I mean, with that, I mean, it was really interesting to see, beaches, or I think places where we could have the competitions, where could create nice aesthetics, but as well as it was a platform for cities to really showcase some of, I think, the landmarks within their cities. And it was interesting, and I think one of the cooler aspects of combining, the sport as well in an urban setting where, I think there is allowed a lot of engagement, with fans who are passing by. For us, I mean, I think we started out simple and we wanted to make some goals. And in terms of creating an ambiance, I think that was always something that we focused on. And we said, if you go to a beach wrestling event, you know, you want to see the high level sport, you know, you want to see the passion that I think wrestling brings, I think, to a fan base, as well as I think making it like a festival-like setting where there can be some tourism. I think, I mean, having some music as well with sport, I think, was the idea from the get-go. I think, going from, the atmosphere and the location, just to go into where we wanted to get it right. I think with the intent to introduce people to the sport in a way as quickly as possible. And I think a barrier of entry when I think you're talking about a sport is always presenting something that's overcomplicated and hard to follow. So at the principle, it was always our focus, the team's focus, to make sure the rule sets were spectator friendly. I think if you were a beach goer who was not specifically there for the event, you could definitely engage and you could understand the rule sets by, I think, watching the action, fairly quickly without any previous wrestling knowledge. So that's, I think, was definitely an important aspect that we took into account, when establishing the rule set. So keep it simple, allow for people to engage in the sport as quickly as possible. And just, going a little bit further, I think we have an audience passionate about sport, but I think trying to provide a quick overview of how the competition unfolds is that you can score 1 point or 3 points, and in terms of an action. So the bout is 3 minutes, as you've seen in the video, and you are scoring up to 3 points. So you can get 1 point by pushing your opponent to the ground or out of the competition area, as well as 3 points, which is more of like the high amplitude dynamic action, which I think, you see is a suplex, some of these exciting movements that you expect when you come to watch a wrestling competition. So yeah, I think maybe just linking back to the series, I think it was, one of our lessons learned with the Olympic styles and improving the sport from 2014 to present day is, we must build our stars. So the athletes have to remain the focus. And I think when you have a straightforward ranking system where they can accumulate points across the series and then have a grand final at the end, which would then crown the world champion in terms of beach wrestling. I think that was important for us just to, I think, give some points that allowed us to, tell a dynamic story of beach wrestling. And so 2020 was supposed to be the second year of the competition, but with the COVID crisis, we did not move forward, but we did have a successful year in 2019 where we did execute the 4 stops. Just to kind of give you insights into that, it was in Chaves, Portugal, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Odessa, Ukraine, and the final happened in Zagreb, Croatia. So I think we had some national federations and partners that I think we will work in the future. I think there's some, we learned some lessons that we can definitely take into the future and revisit potentially and continue to build that network of host cities that we can look to, host these events. In terms of athletes, we had, I think, 162, and this will continue to grow, I think, as the sport and the style grows. It is, I think, for us as the Wrestling Federation to have women equally to men. So I think we definitely will continue to emphasize that this gender balance within the sport. And I think these numbers will just grow, and I think we will achieve more and more balance moving forward. On, I think, the slide, you just see a snapshot of like the daily routine of a weekend at a beach wrestling event. So this is just to kind of, I think, give an update of where we stand, post 1 year after we rolled out the series. So we have 8,000 followers on Instagram and a little under 3,000 followers on Facebook. And I think we've seen a fan base really engage in a small window of time. So I think we really do see the promise just from the fans' perspective and who's tuning in and who's interested. Another point is, I think, showcasing through our broadcast partners, our streaming partners, and I mean, Flow Wrestling has definitely contributed to putting the sport with greater exposure, where I think beach wrestling is seen more and more. I think there's always, the reflection period, if something worked or not. And I think we definitely looked at it and said, we need to do our internal assessment, but also I think seeing the reactions of the audience. And we did receive positive feedback from the wrestling community, where we achieved, I think, a simplified or a less complicated rule set. And I think which allowed for a lot of point scoring, dynamic action, which I think we have to continue to drive home as an important pillar of the sport. So just getting to the end, I think the presentation and then to take some questions, because I think that's the interesting part, to exchange some ideas, or kind of to fill you guys into anything that's hasn't been covered within the presentation. But I mean, for us, the aesthetic of beach wrestling, we really saw people respond to that in a positive way. I think great light with the movement of wrestling on the sand. It was really well received, and I think the kicking up of sand with these movements really adds to the dramatization of the event. So just to end on a couple of shots. I think the sand is certainly can be a blessing and a curse, depending on which ends of the bout you are. But I think it certainly does add to the aesthetic, as I was mentioning before. The last image that I wanted to show was all of the world champions celebrating with champagne. So I think just to see the smile on their faces, that they're enjoying themselves, and I think they bought in to a new series, and I think got a lot out of it. But I think they also gave us a huge amount of content, or I think to be able to tell their story was very interesting. So I think we'll end with a clip, the Anak Beach Games in Doha, and I think this is an example of where the sport could go.
Welcome back. What a great presentation. Thank you very, very much. Great to learn about a new sport, but taken from, it's an ancient sport. It's not a new sport, but a new discipline. One question that comes to mind, thank you so much for the presentation. Initially, when I'm watching those videos and watching the development, how much time did it take to develop the rule set, or is it much varied from what your traditional wrestling format is?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Christian, and I think the team, responsible for the series really used that as the foundation or the starting point to get right. So it was taking the experiences certainly from the Olympic styles and the challenges that we've had, whether it's a critique that it was too complicated, we didn't know who was the winner at the end of the bout. So we really fielded those, and we have, I think, a tuned-in sports department, as well as, two of our bureau members, very hands-on, who are leading the way with the beach wrestling series. Also, I think, had lots of input in making sure this was clear moving forward. So definitely a starting point to get right before we bring in a lot of the other components of launching a series.
Yeah, because it's not just about it's all about sport, but as you say, there is many elements. And you talked earlier about the formation of the engagement. Mm-hmm. And it's such an important part. We all talk about how do we engage our fans, or how do we engage our audience. So you mentioned you did a lot of work with sport presentation and that element of the look and feel of the event.
Yeah, I think that started with certainly the lessons learned from, again, the Olympic styles. But I mean, we also wanted to give beach wrestling in the World Series, I think, its own identity as well. So yeah, we went to the drawing board and, did that brainstorming. How can we, bring a little bit of a different feel? I mean, first off, it's outside, it's on the beach, and we wanted to lighten the mood a bit. And I think, create that, urban festival where, we can certainly engage more youth. I think maybe someone who was possibly in the past not attracted to wrestling. So, an education process as well.
Yeah, because we talked about even something as simple as the uniforms, as I call it. I mean, everybody, it's a sport, but it's the guys I've looked in those last photos, they're all in board shorts. It gives a much more beach feel, which is definitely going to be a different audience. Yeah,
I think it aesthetically it distinguishes our Olympic styles as well from beach. So it's a visual representation of a new style, and I think we do want to showcase, I think in a tasteful way that the physiques of the athletes. I mean, they're in tip-top shape,
fit people.
Yeah, and I think that's part of sport, and I think we wanted to tap into that, and I think it's gone well.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I first saw it at the Anok Beach Games in Doha. It was fantastic event to see live. It gave me a new perspective on wrestling, having seen the Olympic formats for many years. So it was great to see. So well done.
Cool.
So we've got a couple of questions on the chat. Thanks for sending those in. So a question here from Sergey. What is the perception of beach wrestling among hardcore traditional wrestlers at the moment? Is already considered equal to geography wrestling or freestyle wrestling, or is it still the younger brother?
Well,
good question. Thanks,
great question. I think if you're talking about the high competition level who are currently still practicing the Olympic styles, you have a hesitation of whether it's injury before they stop. But there is, I think, still people are interested. And I think now that it's on their radar, I think you'll have more and more crossover. But I mean, one of the world champions was a former bronze medalist at the Olympic Games. So, I mean, he stopped his Olympic career, but it does, I think, because of the rule set and the format of the competition, it maybe even allows wrestlers who want to continue to wrestle extend a longer duration wrestling. So I think that has been a success in itself. But I think, as the sport develops, you'll even get very niche people who are focusing on beach wrestling. But again, it's a simplified rule set where I think whether it's mixed martial arts or I think other styles, other sports, they could definitely, I think, enjoy and engage in beach wrestling as well.
It's great. As you said, you created a rule set, and this is the first year. So let's be fair. Let's be fair and reasonable. It's not about bringing a new discipline, introducing a format, creating a new World Series, an amazing achievement in any sense. So well done. In terms of your results, you had a great following. Looking at your social media posts, in terms of you've got a good following there, a good base which to build on.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, as we've learned, it's don't get obsessed with the numbers, but use it as a benchmark. And the process is important, that we're telling the story of the sport and the athletes. And I think if you focus on doing that at a quality level, then the followers will continue. Of course, you need to check in time to see how we can boost the numbers, but we've taken that approach with Olympic styles, and it's served as a successful formula.
That's great. Okay, so another question here from Achilles. Thanks for your question, Achilles. So are you considering limiting in the future the cross-style participation, like between FR and Geo, freestyle wrestling and Greco?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of beach wrestling, I mean, I don't really understand the relevance of that. But I think if you're saying if you can only wrestle in one, I think right now, I think the idea is to keep it open. I mean, because I think it will be a feeder system of these other Olympic styles, or I think United World Wrestling is the governing body of traditional styles as well. I mean, you have pancration, you have grappling, you have African wrestling and belt wrestling. So I think if we keep it, and look towards these styles who might be also interested, I think right now we're going to leave it open and to give it the most amount of opportunity to be successful.
That's great. Yeah, and as you say, it's early days, and it's evolving. So it is an opportunity to look and test and learn. And you did have some great references there. I like the fact that you said it was when you started the formation of the concept. It was you sat down and said, okay, what are we going to do? Do we want to do a one-off? Do we want to do a series? And I think working through all those processes, going into the next season, will be part of the journey.
Yeah, I think that's it's. You have to do kind of your homework, and you have to always do a debrief after an event. But you can't get obsessed with not, being paralyzed, of not making mistakes, not taking risks to push the sport to make it innovative, and I think something that people really want to watch. So I think, I didn't say this in the presentation, but yeah, I think we do have big plans for beach wrestling as from United World Wrestling standpoint, and it will be featured in the Youth Olympic Games in Dakar. So I think that's promising, and I think we're excited about that.
Yeah, you think of other beach related sports. Beach volleyball been running now for many years, and the success of the disciplines is quite independent. They run very well. Let's hope that beach wrestling will follow in that way.
Yeah, that's the evolution, right? You want to make sure you have the benefit of a pre-existing style, but hopefully it does grow where there's it's big enough where you have separate. But I think there always will be crossover interests. So.
Yeah, and I also see it as a great opportunity. As I mentioned, we saw it at the first multi-sport in the Antiquity Beach Games, and seeing the presentation of different beach sports presented together, it fit in perfectly into the program. It fit on the beach. It looked great. It presented well. It was entertaining. It was engaging. So I think it's a good fit. I think.
Yeah. Cool.
Going forward. So there's a question here from Liz. Thanks for your time and great presentation, Gordon. Question for you. It's clear that there is a big difference in aesthetic and in spectator appeal between the traditional wrestling and beach wrestling. But are there any key differences in the skills needed for an athlete to be successful in beach wrestling versus traditional wrestling, or any key differences in the sport itself? Good question. More sort of technical.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so certainly, if you're looking at Greco-Roman and freestyle women's wrestling, I would say there's definitely techniques that will be to your advantage in beach wrestling. Because the rule set, it doesn't, I think, limit that you have to only use those techniques, because it's not the rule sets of the Olympic style. So I think you will have people who might be successful who don't have a wrestling background. I think it'll be a very small percentage, but certainly I think the technique would be beneficial, but because of the rules that's different enough, it's not, I think, have like a must.
Okay, great. Hopefully that answers your question. Thanks for that, Liz. So the scoring is simple. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. This represents a fantastic, again, and great engagement tool because presenting it on a beach, you still want, there's opportunities for spectators to come up and watch what's going on, and having a simplified ruling and scoring system. So during that process, is that part of what you were thinking in terms of making it easier and accessible?
Yes, that was as well, with the rule set, it was like, how can we have people, when we're in a location where we're going to have tourism, how can we position it where it's going to be successful from a beachgoer. So we were thrilled with the outcome, I think, at the stops where we had people who definitely were not specifically there for the competition, but the crowd starts to build, and then like, oh, what's going on over there? And it's kind of a word of mouth. Oh, let's go check that out. And it was just, that was one of the successes of, I think, having the rules like not overly complicated, but allowing people to engage like that.
Yeah, no, I think it was one of the first things when we talked about it. I remember you explaining to me the rules. And for me personally, I think it's a great step because I think it can be challenging for a new sport. and for any sport if you're trying to learn it. Now, I grew up as an Australian, and for all my colleagues and Australians who love cricket, I know cricket very, very well. But I must admit, I do struggle to explain the rules and the process of understanding the cricket process. So any of my fellow Australians out there who have that challenge, when you're meeting people, especially from different parts of the world, who never have any exposure to cricket, it's a challenge in itself. So like I say, great to have that simplified, and I think it's really important for a new sport. You understand cricket, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more baseball. I mean, coming from the States.
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
but I know about, some wickets and, this type of stuff.
The concepts of a test match and a one-day.
Yeah, 2020. We'll talk about that later.
yeah, sure. Great. Look, I want to say we've kind of come to our questions. We're just on time. I want to say thank you for sharing and being very transparent and open about your lessons and learnings and about the new discipline. It's not easy for anyone to take this on this challenge. Great work that you've done. So thanks for coming and sharing with us on SportWorks Talks today with our participants who've been able to join us this afternoon and who will probably follow up online. For those of you who are out there, we will be also putting this on to sportworker.com so you can watch the replay, and please feel free to share that with your friends and colleagues. Gordon, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you guys for listening.
Great. Wherever you are, please stay safe, well, and bye for now.